She didn't respect that we didn't want to have kids. When we got married, his mom kept pressuring us about having a kid even though we didn't want one. We went on an extended vacation with her a couple of years after we got married. She was acting super weird the whole time and being really nice. She was making my meals and lots of smoothies. During the vacation, I lost my birth control and couldn't find it. When we were packing, I opened her drawer and I found it in her room. I found crushed prenatal vitamins and I found herbal fertility smoothies. I was hysterical and took a pregnancy test. I ended up finding out I was pregnant and I cannot tell you how mad I was at her. We kept the baby and filed a restraining order against her. Looking back, I was really stupid and should have been more wary. I love my kid, but I wish I had gotten to wait until I was older to have him. Most moms won't be this wild, but just remember, if they don't respect your little boundaries, they won't respect any. What an insane story. Can you imagine having your mother-in-law hide your birth control and basically forcing you to have children? Looking back, there were signs. My spouse is the oldest and is the most successful and healthiest out of all her siblings. She is the only one with a college education. She is very successful in her field and continues to seek new challenges. Her mother, though, did not finish high school and has no desire to. My mother-in-law was a stay-at-home mom who did not really take care of the kids and cheated on every husband she ever had. She was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive, and to this day does not take any responsibility for it. We live over 2,000 miles away, and mother-in-law calls my wife every day. She expects my wife to fix all her problems, teach her to budget, deal with other siblings' problems, etc. She treats my wife like her therapist. Mother-in-law and siblings are dysfunctional, and they end up manufacturing chaos because they never went to therapy to work through their trauma. They just keep passing it down. Then, they all expect my wife and I to fix their problems they create. It's always been a long time belief that you're supposed to keep your family close, but if they're causing this much drama to you, I would certainly understand if you were to cut them out of your life. But at the same time, I can definitely understand why it might be hard to do so, even in a case like this. When my now husband moved in with me, his mom wasn't pleased, and this led her to go on a tirade about me, including blaming me for his depression, the depression he's had for most of his life. Then when we were doing our wedding registry, she was upset about the fact that we put certain items on our registry. She berated us for about 20 minutes, and the phrase, "Well, I don't know how she was raised," was thrown around. As I've watched how my mother-in-law sometimes disregards what my sister-in-law says about my niece, I know that once babies enter the picture, things will be a problem. I don't really know what to say about that one. I don't know why she would be so worried about what they were putting on their wedding registry. If she seems inappropriate when you first meet, it will not get better. My mother-in-law was loud, obnoxious, and difficult to be around when I first started dating my husband, and she's only gotten worse. Time has only made it easier for her to be herself because family, including me, were good at acting tolerant of her bad behavior. Whenever my husband or mother-in-law's mother tries to calmly explain that the family doesn't want to hear about how many times you've peed yourself today, she goes on a sobbing rant of, "Why can't I just be accepted for who I am?" to the point that she'll sometimes threaten unsubscribing from life. Her acting out has progressed to the point that her sisters-in-law actively avoid holidays because they can't stand to be around her for even a few minutes, let alone hours. She didn't respect boundaries in the beginning, and she definitely doesn't now. There's nothing worse than having someone in your life who just doesn't know the meaning of TMI, and then having a pity party about everything. There's certain details that you just don't need to tell everybody. I adore my mother-in-law. She is a great woman and grandmother. However, she has this annoying habit of not asking me directly about anything. She talks about things which affect my daughter or myself with my husband, and then they inform me. They don't ask or consult. Last year, when my daughter stayed with her for a couple of weeks during the summer, I specifically asked that they refrain from seeing two specific movies in the theater because I wanted to see them myself with my daughter. Mother-in-law proceeded to take her to one of them and said afterward, "I knew there was a movie to not take her to, but didn't remember which one." Mind you, she could have asked. One freaking text is all she had to send, but no. Overall, a lovely lady, just aggravating at times. I can definitely understand that. It's not that difficult to just communicate with people. But at the same time, there's two sides to every coin. If the OP seemed like a control freak about a lot of things, I could see how someone might try to avoid asking her or consulting her for things, but at the same time, you still have to respect people's boundaries. If she laughs at your humiliation, just run. We hated each other, mainly because of this, but when I was 8 months pregnant with my first kids, I had to stay with her because we couldn't afford housing. It was a living hell. I was having twins and was giant. I had a lot of problems with mobility as I have a really small frame, and I was carrying two big twins. She would put things on the floor and laugh when I couldn't get them. She would also videotape me waddling to the bathroom. She packed up my maternity clothes when I was at my OB, said it was an accident, and bought me clothes for someone only 5 months pregnant. They were super tight on me and made me so self-conscious. She would also say I was manspreading when I couldn't physically close my legs because I was so pregnant. Also, multiple times I peed myself because she pushed on my stomach when I needed to pee. I hate her so much. I have no words for that one. I don't know how someone could be so hateful to their daughter-in-law. That's horrible. She named everything after her son. Email was his name, her license plates, her passwords, and so on. She is obsessed with him, and he barely tolerates her, and she has twisted it to be my fault somehow. But he was avoiding her from the day I met him. He's 40. Time to let him go. Just like one of the other stories, is nothing worse than having a parent who just cannot let their child live their life. That's what we do when we grow up. We find someone that we want to spend the rest of our life together with, build a family, and have a life together. Mother-in-law actually calls my wife and asks her to talk to her sibling who is currently living with mother-in-law whenever there is an issue between the two. When we lived in the same state, we spent so much time with my wife's family. Every weekend, there was some reason to go to mother-in-law's house. Now we live across the country, and when we go back for visits, mother-in-law makes snide comments about us staying with my parents and tries to schedule something in all our free time. If we're not with her, she's constantly texting or calling to see what our plans are, even though we told her. If someone cannot set or respect healthy boundaries, even a large physical distance won't stop them from overstepping in your relationship. Luckily, my wife and I are on the same page, and she is very good about setting and holding boundaries with her mom. She has no problem putting the phone on Do Not Disturb or hanging up on her mother if she says she has to go and the mother doesn't end the conversation. There's nothing worse than starting a family and not having your parents let you actually live your life without feeling like they need to be injected in every bit of your life. I hate to say that it's not exactly abnormal to have a love-hate relationship with your mother-in-law. Let me know down in the comments your crazy mother-in-law stories.